Hey guys, welcome back. So in the last video we had done the setup of our scene, and in this one we will start experimenting with lights. So just before that, let me turn off the environment and the sun preview. So these two buttons are basically there just to show the environment and the sunlight in case if your node doesn't have the environment or the sunlight added. So now this looks pretty much like our scene, which is actually it is. And to add the light, just like any other node, we can add it from the list from here. We directly search for light like this, and under this visual instance 3D, under that we have directional light 3D, we have omni light 3D, and we have spotlight 3D. So let us start with a spotlight, and I'll simply double click in order to add that over here. And now let me just drag it. So basically you can drag your light node just like any other 3D object. You can even rotate it using this gizmo. So let me just go to the transform, and from here let me rotate it to -90. All right, so here we can adjust a slide somewhere, something like this. All right, so our light has now been added and we can see our object is getting lit up. So I'll press Ctrl S to save this scene, and now I will press play just to see, and yes, the light is affecting our scene now. We are now able to see something in our scene. Now I know that this doesn't look great at this point of time, but it's okay. As of now, we are just experimenting with the light. So we just need to understand what each of the light is doing. So right away you'll see this orange box surrounding the light. So what is that basically? So let's say you have a scene wherein you have more than one light added into the scene, and for any debugging purpose, if you want to check whether an object has how many lights are affecting that object. So basically you can use this box in order to know which light is affecting, because essentially what is happening is whatever the item that is coming inside this orange box is getting affected by this light. Now that depends on intensity, how much effect is there, but definitely the effect will be there. So moving forward, now let's understand some of the properties which we can alter for this light. So the very first thing that you will see is under Spotlight 3D, we have this spot, and the very first thing is the range. So as the name suggests, range is how much your light is going to travel in the scene. So the lesser the amount, the shorter the light length will be, and the greater the farther light will travel. All right, attenuation is basically at what rate the light will decay. Okay, so it's like the in the real environment also, when light travels, energy, a part of light gets absorbed by either the air, the nature, or whatever medium that light is traveling through. So the same thing we are trying to mimic over here, that we are setting up a rate, that at what rate the light will travel and will be absorbed by the in-between environment. So for example, if I increase the value of this attenuation rate, so let's maybe increase it by 3. So right away you will see that the light is coming on on the surface of my object, but it is now very shallow. So why is this happening essentially is because the same amount of energy of light is getting emitted from the light source, but in between the light is getting absorbed, and we also call it light decay. So that is happening, and that's why the effect of light is that much shallow. So again, attenuation you have to uh, customize only in case if you want to have a more control over how the light is affecting your overall scene. Okay. Now coming to the angle. So again, the angle is how much farther the light is traveling in a radius. So since this is a spotlight, so it's like a cone shape, like emission is there for the light. So using this angle, you can set till what angle your cone shape is. And the angle attenuation is basically the light is reaching perpendicular to the surface, okay, with the same amount of energy. But the angle attenuation is deciding how far it is going to decay when it comes to the radius of the light, okay. So basically, in the 90 degree of that light, the energy is fine, it's coming same. But as we move go like beyond the 90 degree, the radius of the light will start decay, and it will directly affect based on the angle attenuation that you set. So let me just make it back to 1. Now let's take out some common properties of the light. So one is the color. So as the name suggests, we can obviously change the color of the light, okay, something like this. So whatever color you want to give, you can give. Next, the energy, as the name says, we can change the energy of the light. This is basically the intensity of your light. So how much intense your light you should want to be. So let's keep it at 5. Now, indirect energy and volumetric fog is something that is not covered in this particular course, since we are only dealing with the basics. So we are just going to focus on the basics. So again, there are many other options also, like the negative, the specular, bake mode, and all those. So these things we may cover in some later advanced tutorials, but for this basic course we are not going to touch that. Now you will see that the object is getting lit up, but in real life, when there is a light falling onto a surface of the object, so obviously there is a shadow that gets generated. But here in our scene, you will see that there is no shadow at all. Why this? Because the shadow has been disabled by default. So let me just enable that. And since our light is directly on top of it, you'll see a symmetrical shadow all over the surface of the bottom area. So let me just adjust the angle, and let me make it like something like this and move it further away. So now you will see better that if my shadow is enabled and I'm adjusting the light, so the shadow is getting updated in real time. So let me press E to switch to the rotation mode, and let me just rotate it somewhere like this, and, and let me take this angle. So you can see that when I'm moving the light, the shadows are getting affected as it about the spotlight. Now let me quickly delete this, and let's add the another type of light, which is the omni light. So in other game engines you might find this light with the name of point light. So basically it's a light that affects in its 360-degree angle direction. So that means that the source, the emission shape of the light is like a sphere. So wherever you will wherever you will add this light, so basically the light will be emitted in all 360-degree direction like a sphere. All right. So again, we will get some of the default settings, like the range. So how big the radius is essentially, so how much your light is going to travel. So you can set that from here. Next is the attenuation, again the same thing, at what rate the light will decay. Then shadow mode is cube and dual paraboloid, so we'll leave that to cube. Now coming to the light menu, again we have some similar options over here to change the color, okay. And then in the shadow, again it is disabled, so we will enable that in order to see the shadow in effect. So let me just for here, let me just make it a little bit bigger. So yeah, you can see now the shadows are getting changed in real time and my light is now working. So we have seen now the omni light. Now let's talk about the directional light. So let me just press delete. Let me add a directional light 3D node. And directional light is somewhat different from the other two lights. So how it is different? See here, what is happening is it does not matter where you put your light. So in case of directional light, the position does not matter. What matters is the rotation. So whatever the rotation that you will set for your directional light, in that same rotation, in that same line, your entire scene will be lit up. So what that means is irrespective of the direction, oh sorry, irrespective of the position of your directional light, the direction of your directional light matters, because in whatever direction your directional light is pointing towards, the entire scene will lit up in the same direction. Okay, so in my case here I am pointing it like this, and let me just go ahead to the directional shadow. So here you will see some of the options. So here we will not make any changes. Here again the same settings like color, energy and all that. So we can maybe increase the energy a little bit. Now coming to the shadow, let me just enable the shadow, and right away you will see now that since I have using the I'm changing the direction, so my shadows are getting updated. But let's press W to switch to the move mode, and from here if I move my light anywhere, you won't see any change in the shadow. That's happening because the directional light does not care about the position wherever it is. It does not matter. Only the thing matters, that is the angle at which the light is set to emit. Okay, again going back to the rotation mode, and from here if I try to rotate it like this, so you can see the shadows are getting updated. So that was it about the basic three types of light that we have covered in this video. In the next video, we will see some more tips and tricks for creating a lighting scene. So see you in the next one.